Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in the world on the 8th of January of 2026. Today we have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And this video we're going to start with the Black Sea. According to information we have, according to media, the oil tanker Elbas was attacked by a drone off the coast of Turkey in the Black Sea. According to the Turkish newspaper, the Palau flagged vessel sustained damage to its upper part as a result of the kamikaze drone strike. So this is the third tanker that was intercepted or attacked during the previous 24 hours. I would like to remind you that two more tankers were intercepted in neutral waters yesterday. We discussed the situation during the previous videos. Once again, here we can see the Mariner tanker that was intercepted by the US forces. So this episode took place yesterday with the participation of the UK Special Forces. According to the Secretary of Defense of the United Kingdom, the sources are saying that the crew of the Mariner tanker consists of 28 people, 20 Ukrainian citizens, 6 Georgians and 2 Russians. Another tanker was intercepted to the north of Venezuela, this time the tanker by the name of Sofia. So once again, summarizing everything, during the previous 24 hours, at least 3 tankers were either intercepted or attacked or damaged by some forces. When talking the Black Sea, we still don't know who exactly attacked the tanker, but the most important thing that there are forces in the world who are interested in attacking these ships, vessels that, according to different media, belongs to Shadow Fleet, and most likely this process will continue. Another important article was published about the situation in Greenland. Europe might make concessions on Greenland in exchange for security guarantees for Ukraine. So this is the game. This is another game that has begun between the United States of America and the European Union. Obviously, we understand that we won't see any clashes, any battle for Greenland, because if it happens, NATO would be probably forced to dismiss itself. So that is why we will see lots of political games, lots of probably negotiations, some deals, trade deals and so on. And now we see that this might be a very good deal for the United States of America. At least this is something that they can accept. They will increase their presence, or they will increase their influence above the Greenland in exchange for some security guarantees for Ukraine. As of now, it's very difficult to imagine this formula, because Russians most likely will never accept this. Russians will never accept the presence of states of the US force on the territory of Ukraine, but Russians has nothing most likely about the increased influence of the United States of America in this area. So a very interesting game has begun, as you can see, but the thing is that the time is running low. At least the time is running low for some parts of Ukraine, because due to bad weather conditions. Now let's discuss this in details. According to information we have, the next 20 days are going to be the most difficult for Ukraine since the beginning of the special military operation. The Kyiv city administration urges residents to prepare for hard times, and this is the weather forecast for the next days. Frosts of minus 30 by Celsius will cover Kyiv in mid-January. That was stated by Telegraph. The coldest day in January is 15th, when the temperature can feel like minus 27 by Celsius degrees. So this is going to be a very cold period of time, and today we start to see more and more updates that the Russians are about to begin their massive missile and drone attack through Ukraine. Most likely Russians will attack this during this period of time. At least this is my opinion, because most likely the Russians haven't been attacking Ukraine for a very long period of time. 2 or 3 weeks they haven't attacked, or maybe even more, which means that the Russians managed to collect a critical mass of drones and missiles, and they will try to use them in coming days. Of course, everything depends whether the Russian drones and missiles are able to fly during such weather conditions. Who knows? We don't know probably the technical characteristics of these types of weapon, but the next days will show us everything. At the same time, we start to receiving reports that the Russians began attacking the southern regions of Ukraine, especially during the previous 24 hours. The Russians were over-focused in the Dnipropetrovsk region. The media stated that as a result of attack, the substation, another object of critical infrastructure, was significantly damaged in the area of the settlement of Svitle. We're talking about this substation, and due to this attack, and not just in this area, also due to attacks around the city of Kryvyi Rog, a total blackout occurred in this area, and it's still unknown when exactly the local authorities would be able to restore the situation with heat, water, and energy supply. And this is right before the beginning of the most difficult part of January, when the temperature will fall significantly down. So, telling the truth, this situation can force Ukrainians in the city of Dnipro to begin evacuation, at least for the next 2-3 weeks, and I'm not sure whether these people will return back to Dnipro when this situation finishes. But the city of Dnipro, as well as the city of Zaporozhye, are very important cities for Ukraine's logistics, for Ukraine's production of drones, missiles, and different types of weapon that goes further to the line of combat contact. And if Ukraine loses these two cities from this military perspective, from the logistic perspective, this can lead to unpredictable consequences along the line of combat contact. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation on the ground. And first let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction. During the previous 24 hours we received lots of important updates, but the most important one is coming from the northeastern Zaporozhye direction, where the Russians, as a result of clashes, managed to improve their position significantly around the settlement by the name of Bratske. So today the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation, as well as the Group of Forces East, published a report, and they said, and according to this report and according to video that was published by pro-Russian sources, the defense of the settlement of Bratske fell, and Russians managed to improve their position significantly in this area. So let's compare the map between the dates. This is the end of the 7th of January, and this is the end of the 8th of January of 2026. As you can see, the Russians improved their positions. Furthermore, according to the video, we will not watch the video due to casualties and violence, but according to this video, pro-Russian sources from the Group of Forces East adjusted the map as if Russians managed to improve their positions not just around the settlement of Bratske, but also to get railways that go between the city of Pokrovsk and Gulay-Pole. We're talking about this territory, and they didn't show during this video the situation to the north of the settlement of Ternovate, but it seems that these territories are no longer under control of the armed forces of Ukraine. So the Russians managed to establish the very strong foothold on the Ukrainian side of the river of Gaichur. Now the Russians are focused to improve their positions not just on the Ukrainian side of the river of Gaichur, but to take under complete control positions along railways that goes through the settlement of Ternovate in the northern direction, from the southern direction, from the village of Zaliznichne through the settlement of Ternovate in the direction of the city by the name of Pokrovska. Now Russians are trying to take everything, they're trying to take the gap between the railways and the river of Gaichur, and the Russians managed to improve their positions right exactly in this area significantly during the previous days. And when the Russians finish the creation of this foothold along railways, most likely this is going to be the end of January, then Russians will start their major offensive operation in the direction of the city of Orekhov first, and then further in the western direction towards the city of Zaporozhye. And then we're gonna see the next round of talks most likely. Now let's talk about the Dnipropetrovsk region, the Dnipropetrovsk direction. During the previous 12 hours, 24 hours, the Russians improved their positions. This information was stated by different very reliable pro-Russian sources. And the Russians began their offensive operation in this area several days ago. So this is the situation by the end of the 4th of January, and this is exactly the moment when the map started to be adjusted. So these are the changes on the ground between the dates. As you can see, during the previous days, the Russians were mainly focused on the gap, on the pockets between the settlement of Novopavlovka, Goryokhova, and Muravka. So we are talking about these fields. As you can see, significant changes on the ground were recorded in this area according to different pro-Russian sources and neutral mappers. Most likely Russians will continue offensive operation because, first of all, they want to cut this territory into pieces and to cut this stronghold that looks like a butterfly from the settlement of Novopavlovka itself. So they want to cut the defense line in this area, and and then to finish the battle for the entire southeastern part of the Dnipropetrovsk region. This will allow the Russians to enter the Dnipropetrovsk operational space and to begin offensive operation further in the northern directions towards the settlements of Mizhova, Vladimirovka, and so on, almost till the settlement of Pavlograd, which is a key city in the central part of Ukraine already. As for the Pokrovsk direction, or the Brapolye direction, during the previous 24 hours, as you can see, we haven't received anything special. The same story, when talking about the city of Konstantinovka, small changes were recorded. So these are the changes on the ground between the dates. This is the end of the 7th, this is the end of the 8th. The Russians improved their positions around the Shanghai Lake. This video was published by pro-Ukrainian sources. Here we can see how Ukrainians were attacking Russians in this area. For example, one of the episodes of this video took place exactly at this point, and based on this video we colored the territory along M32 road. This territory used to be considered mainly as a gray zone, but now we received proofs that confirm the opposite situation. The Russians are there, and the Russians continue advancing and improving their positions in the eastern part of the city of Konstantinovka. Furthermore, pro-Ukrainian sources confirmed that Russians improved their positions significantly around the villages of Maysky, Klinova, Viralyubovka, and along railways in the direction of the settlement of Popasne. The Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation and the Russians reported about progress in this area several months ago, or maybe weeks ago, but just now pro-Ukrainian sources confirmed the situation there as well. As for the Slaviansk direction, during the previous 24 hours, we received lots of important videos. Probably the most important update is that Russians improved their positions to the west of the city of Siversk. We had a video that was published by pro-Ukrainian sources. We will not watch video due to violence, but based on the video published by pro-Ukrainian sources, we have colored the pocket that was located to the west of the city of Siversk. We see that the Russians continue advancing, and currently the heaviest clashes are taking place for the village of Riznikovka with its dense network of the fortifications around. So this is a case settlement that is under control of the armored forces of Ukraine, and the Russians are trying to take the territory, and if they do this, they will be able to get the next line of defense. These are the villages of Krivoluka and Kaleniki, and after the end of the battle for these territories, the Russians will enter the Mykolaiv operational space, and the battle for the Slaviansk power station will begin. Now let's talk about the Kupiansk direction. During the previous 24 hours, probably the most important updates came from the settlement of Lazova. Today we received 2 articles published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and both articles are telling us that first sabotage and reconnaissance group of the armored forces of the Russian Federation managed to outflank the settlement of Karovy Yar and to enter the settlement of Lazova. So what the Russians were doing there? This is the phone cell that was taken by a Ukrainian soldier that managed to capture a Russian soldier or something like this, and a Ukrainian soldier is saying that he had some application where he could find a map and roads for Russian soldiers that were moving there. So the Russians had a map, and using this map the Russians entered the settlement of Lazova, and the Russians, when they were on the territory of Lazova, began probably spreading leaflets, lists suggesting Ukrainians to evacuate this area immediately. The Russians were saying that Ukrainians refused to retreat from the most northern part of the Donetsk region, so that is why Russians or sabotage and reconnaissance groups suggested Ukrainian civilians to do this without waiting any order from Ukrainian side. So this is a very important direction. This direction has probably political value because this is the most northern part of the Donetsk region, and obviously if Russians are tasked to establish complete control over the Donetsk region, first of all they need to do the situation in this region. So most likely in coming days we will receive lots of updates from this territory. Furthermore, right before we started making this video, we received the report that Russians managed to improve their positions significantly in the area of the villages of Svetogorsk and Yarova. So we expect that in coming days huge changes on the ground will be recorded exactly in this area. The Russians are getting closer and closer to the city of Izum and to let's say the northern flank of the city of Slaviansk. The Russians seems like taking the city of Slaviansk in pincers. As for the Kupiansk direction during the previous 24 hours, the most important video is coming from the eastern part of the settlement of Podoli. I would like to remind you that several days ago, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation stated that as a result of clashes, the village of Podoli came under the control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. But when this report was published for the first time, we didn't have any video that could confirm this. But today, 8 days later, Russians published this video where we can see at least 2 episodes when Russians raised the Russian flag. One of them was raised in the northern part, the second one in the eastern part. Based on this video, we adjusted the map. So this is the situation by the end of the 7th, and this is the end of the 8th of January of 2026. The Russians improved their position significantly, and the Russians continue their offensive. Ukrainians are trying to bring additional reinforcements and reserves, but Russians established complete control. So as we discussed everything here, we have already seen 6 months ago during the third battle for the city of Kupiansk, then Ukrainians counterattacked, restored control. Now we can see the 5th battle, and most likely this 5th battle is going to be the last battle. At the same time, the Russians intensified their activities in the northeastern part of Kharkiv region. The Russians brought tall flamethrower systems, and now they're advancing along the line, along the river of Oskol, trying to get as deep as possible towards the settlement of Veliki Burluk. So we believe that the Kharkiv offensive operation has begun. Furthermore, the Russians continue offensive operation in the direction of the city of Sumy. During the previous 24 hours, additional changes on the ground were recorded, and these changes were confirmed by pro-Russian sources and by pro-Ukrainian sources. The Russians, according to these updates, managed to get the next defense layer of the city of Sumy. We are talking about the villages of Khotin, Pisarivka, Mala, Karchakovka. So the battle for this territory has begun as well. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds you to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.